tremendously reassured by their overall optimism.
I'm known as one of the most depressing economists there are.
Yeah, but if you mix economy and history, you get even more pessimistic. Like, I think we're sort of on the verge of the Credit Anstalt situation in Eastern Europe, and you left out the Balts. They're falling apart even faster than the ones in the South. I really want to hear Hans's comments about how he thought the IMF was playing this currency game, because it's pretty clear they're trying to provide some intellectual capital on the subject of how to go about the realignment. And of course, the realignment is the fastest way to change trade direction, and nobody likes that. And the last time they tried it in a situation like that, we got smooth hauling. So then the other thing that brings you out of these things, because reflation doesn't historically have a great track record of actually doing very much except keeping people out of the streets, which may be the main reason they do it. And that is the war. And gosh, don't we just have a couple of good candidates for that? And it's bombing people we don't really know, so that reduces the political cost rather a lot. So my outlook is really pretty gloomy, but I won't foist it on you. I'd just like to ask, I'm thinking about this, you're talking about it, what structural changes do you see coming out of this? If you analyze it more or less as a cyclical issue.
No, I think it's secular.
But
I don't think it's cyclical. I think you've got a cyclical overlay on it. I think it's secular. I think the things you raise...
Excuse me, sir, my dear. On Wall Street, could you define the two words?
Well, cyclical is, up and down like this. Secular is structural change, which changes the whole dynamics of the next cyclical set of changes. Is that a reasonable way of... The academics might not like
so
it,
what
but
what's your
Yeah.
movie look like after the, as the secular part of it starts to bite?
Okay, the consumption function has driven Western capitalism. The consumption function in Western countries, the OECD countries, is going to be less, it's going to reduce in importance relative to government. Okay? That is a very significant change within those Western democracies. Globally, you have a huge shift that's taking place, and has been taking place actually for the last 15 years. And that is the shift of the two great populous countries in the world rising in importance and actually becoming very significant drivers of the global economy, and the eclipse or the leveling out of the role of the United States economy. The United States economy was around 25% of GDP, it's now 22%, I expect it's going to go to 20 or 18. And you've got the rise of China and the rise of India. And India, it's interesting, we haven't spoken about India, but India is much more important than China. Demographically, it is a democracy. You're all going to laugh at how they hold their elections, but we can't even run an election for 30 million people.
They're going to do it 3 days.
They're running it for 1.2 billion.
4 or 5 days.
David, no one's brought this up, but this speech at Lula.
20% or so. But I was very surprised that you would be moving into banks, because you said you are very conservative, and nobody can tell me these days they know how to analyze future bank earnings, because we don't know what's on their asset side. So in that respect, I was very surprised. Since your comments, there were issues of $1.2 billion of Canadian bank preferred shares, and as I was pointing out the last time, down the road, Canadian banks won't have enough money left for common shareholders to pay the current dividends. because the business partially won't be there, which allowed them to pay these dividends we have, or which are indicated still at the present time. And secondly, there has been a huge issue of Tier 2 bonds and preferred shares, which obviously payments of dividends and interest rank prior to common.
You know, this speech of Lula's last week,
Oh.
I think is
Brazil.
you know, all you need to listen to, right? I mean, he basically said, you know, he's got, I admire the man, you know, he's got Brown sitting there, right? He's got, well, you know, there weren't too many darker skinned bankers, you know, they were all blonde and blue-eyed. And this is, it's all you need to hear. And I think this is what, back to what you were saying about China. David cut me off, but I was just going to say to him. But it's all about grabbing a bigger share in terms of the structural bodies that we have, be it the IMF, be it the Security Council, and that's what Lula's speech was all about. And that's the changes that are going to happen.